I'd like to call the August 1st, 2023 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the Board of Commissioners at our meeting this evening. All right, we come to the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Does any member of the public have any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we now come to public comment. There are some folks who have signed up to speak during public comment, so I'm going to call on them, and we'll go through the list. But if anybody else wants to speak during public comment, there'll be an opportunity to do so after I get through the list of folks who signed up. The time limit for each person during public comment is 3 minutes. You'll get an orange light when you've got about 30 seconds left, and a red light when the 3 minutes is up. And we do ask that you discontinue your public comments once the time's up, because we want to give everyone the same amount of time. And I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name who signed up. The first person is Andrew Clark.
Part 2. Hello, I'm Andrew Clark, Legislative Director for Bedingfield-Scheidel, Chapter 14, Disabled American Veterans, speaking here today on behalf of those that serve this great nation and defend our freedom, and encourage elected representatives to invest in those that make, defend, and protect the American way of life fueled by the U.S. economy. Disabled American Veterans Chapter 14 is dedicated to a single purpose: empowering veterans to lead high-quality lives with respect and dignity. We accomplish this mission by ensuring that veterans receive the full range of their benefits, advocate for veterans, and educate the public on the great sacrifices and accomplishments of veterans returning back to civilian life. Making up the U.S. economy includes industries involving talented American music artists, music that Veterans Affairs uses for medicine to heal veterans, music that studies continue to show that learning a musical instrument can increase an IQ, music powering an American economy like North Carolina native, area local, #1 country music artist Luke Combs generating over $5 million a show. In addition to her multi-million-dollar vocals, Ariana Grande continues to generate millions in merch sales a year. Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour, causing not one but two seismic earthquakes, shaking out nearly $5 billion to the U.S. national tourism, benefiting the U.S. hotel industry, according to the Federal Reserve's. Multi-billion-dollar touring artist who sang the national anthem a decade ago on Capitol Hill, and vocals are described as that of a goddess. Bombs bursting in air, land of the free, home of the brave. The United States of America's national anthem has a special meaning to DAV Chapter 14 because all of our members have been injured or ill while answering the nation's call. Home of the brave, thanks to the indestructible and ever-determined American spirit demonstrated by DAV 14 member Robinson. A Purple Heart recipient from the Iraq War 20 years ago, his convoy was ambushed, blinded by shattered glass, and crashing into a barrier, waking up days later thanks to Army medics removing the shattered glass from his eyes. The scars from his face still oozing and healing as he lost half his teeth and still returned to the front lines to serve out nearly 4 more months of a 13-month tour. A price was paid, a promise was made. I encourage the representatives to invest in music and art programs, invest in veterans, and invest to those that make, defend, and protect the American way of life. In closing, I will leave you with a recent quote from the greatest CEO of multiple American businesses, Elon Musk, quote, "We should be proud to be American. I certainly am," end quote. Disabled American Veterans Chapter 14 can be reached at dav14.org or by calling 828-367-0037. I'm proud to be a disabled American veteran, and I yield back.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. All right. Next is Honor Moore.
Greetings, Commissioners. This is the first time I've come and spoken to you in person. I thank you for your service. It's a lot of meetings and time you give to our community. Today I represent the Asheville Coalition for Public Safety, which we normally speak at council meetings. We've come to make a few points today to you all. We can all agree that misdemeanors should not be severe. There should not be severe sentencing for that. However, there's a growing level of vagrancy crimes such as theft, vandalism, break-ins, and squatting that is occurring all over our city on all of our major corridors, all the way out into the county. Tourism is down, as cited in the AVL Watchdog article recently, by 11%. It's well known that Asheville is now an unsafe city with an outsized vagrancy population. We're concerned about the jail reduction grant. Our jail is currently losing employees. We need to properly compensate our correctional officers just as we do for entry-level police in both the city and the county. Our basic infrastructure is in jeopardy, which could ultimately impact our local economy, and it is. San Francisco comes to mind as businesses are now pulling out of their downtown. The Asheville Coalition for Public Safety is aware that violent offenders are being let out versus minor crimes. And I could cite several examples. The APD continues to make us aware. Repeat offenders need more accountability. Addicts will persist unless a boundary is set. We have to ask how it helps our city to allow addicts to set up camps, do drugs wherever they want, leave their needles all over our parks and city. People in recovery, and I know because I've been in Al-Anon for 15 years, are the strictest on not enabling and will tell you not to allow panhandling. So we're asking the county commissioners to ask the staff to please join the city in drafting a panhandling policy to work in conjunction with both the APD, the Sheriff's Office, and the DA in a concerted effort. We are also continuing to ask for competitive compensation for the correction officers, all the entry-level officers, so that we can compete with other cities. The shark has jumped the tank in Asheville, and the Asheville Coalition for Public Safety is asking for common sense leadership between the major governmental entities. We are asking for you to consider the legacy of Asheville long after you are serving in the positions that you are in now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Bailey Stockwell.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I stand before you today as a representative of the Asheville Coalition for Public Safety, a group of concerned citizens who value public safety and fully support our police and sheriff's departments. We commend the Asheville City Council for their efforts in crafting panhandling ordinances to address homelessness and public safety, standing strong in the face of opposition. Today, we urge you to join forces with other local groups and leaders to extend these efforts to Buncombe County. Panhandling ordinances are essential for our constituents' safety. While we understand the desperation some panhandlers face, aggressive panhandling poses risks to drivers and pedestrians, and public panhandling can create the perception of insecurity. We need a balanced approach that respects the rights of those experiencing homelessness while ensuring community safety. We can learn from other cities like Portland and Denver who have successfully reduced panhandling through supportive housing, mental health services, and job training. Let's address the root causes of homelessness to create a safer and more compassionate community. Data from various cases across the United States justifies panhandling ordinances. By crafting regulations that address aggressive panhandling and its impact on public safety, we can work towards a safer community. We also recognize the importance of the Jail Reduction Act, but must be cautious not to compromise public safety. Reducing incarceration based solely on numbers can have unintended consequences, I think, as we have seen. We need a balanced approach that ensures public safety while addressing the root causes of incarceration. As the Coalition for Public Safety, we call upon you, the Buncombe County Commissioners, to work together with the Asheville City Council and other leaders. Let's craft panhandling ordinances that prioritize public safety and create a community that cares for all of its members. Thank you for your attention and consideration. And I know this wasn't on the agenda, but we felt like because of what's going on with City Council and their consideration of updating ordinances and adding to them, that it might not be a bad idea for everybody to be working together. So we thought we'd bring it to your attention. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Bailey. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak during public comment? Sure, come on up.
My name's Helen Hyatt. I live on the South French Broad neighborhood, and I just would like to reiterate the crime and vagrancy that happens in this neighborhood. We had a fire in the Delta house downstairs broken into, the house was broken into, and a fire set in the basement. 220 South French Broad, a fire on the front porch. These are all vagrant people who are either homeless or just taking advantage of the folks in the public housing units. And the Varick Chapel was broken into and a fire in the basement. It's all caused a lot of distress to these businesses and homes. And we cannot avoid, the gentleman, my neighbor at 160 South French Broad was broken into. He answered the door and gave the man a bottle of water, and he ended up in Mission Hospital with his head bashed in his own home, and he's lived in this house for almost 50 years. I don't think that's right. We can't let folks in and out of the jail. This gentleman who did it, he was in jail for the longest time. Then he was back out. They let him back out. 7/11, he was arrested again in the same spot. It's the same people backwards and forwards. What's the point? And why should the citizens always take the brunt of it? So please consider your different policies and do things that work for everybody in the neighborhood. I really appreciate it, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for taking time. Anyone else? All right. Thanks to everyone who took time to come out and speak during public comment. We appreciate it. All right. The next item on the agenda, under good news, is the National Association of Counties 2023 Achievement Award for Buncombe County NC Racial Equity Training Series. And Dr. Noriel Armstrong, I think, is here for this item. Thanks for being with us.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioner Newman and Commissioners. I am Dr. Noriel Armstrong, Chief Equity and Human Rights Officer, and I'm excited to be before you today to talk about the good news of us receiving the National Association of Counties Achievement Award for our Racial Equity Training Series. Our Racial Equity Training Series was awarded the Achievement Award from the National Association of Counties, which was founded in 1935, and it unifies county officials to advocate for county government priorities and federal policymaking, promote exemplary county policies and practices, nurture leadership skills, and extend knowledge networks to optimize county and taxpayer resources and cost savings, and enrich the public's understanding of county government. And also, for 2023, we received the Achievement Award for our training based off of the innovation, effective county government programs, and strengthening the subjects of our residents. And the racial equity training was completed by our meaningfully engaged equity team, our MEET team within the Equity Inclusive Work Group. They put in over 100 hours working on this training, and so far around 400 county employees have attended this training, and so it was a true honor. Terry Bellamy and Richard Bell worked on the application and submitted it, and we are excited that we received this. We are also excited that we are continuing our trainings. Our LGBTQIA+ 101 training launched earlier in July, and it will continue on a monthly basis. And our racial equity trainings will continue every quarter, and they are 4-hour trainings. And we're excited about being able to do this because not only did we receive the award, but we are aligning with our REAP goals, which is to implement and provide ongoing racial equity learning and support for staff. And we are looking forward to continue to do that, to reach out to the community with subject matter experts, to continue our training not only on racial equity, but all equities. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Next item is a presentation on Child Fatality Prevention Team, Community Child Protection Team. Annual report, and Dr. Jennifer Mullendor is here to present this item. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. So as Chair of the Buncombe County Community Child Protection Team and Child Fatality Prevention Team, I'm going to be covering key points from our 2022 annual report to the board. So first, for some background, per North Carolina General Statute, the purpose of the state's child fatality prevention system is to assess the records of all deaths of children from birth to age 18 who are North Carolina residents at the time of their deaths, as well as selected cases in which children are being served by Child Protective Services. And the goal of these record reviews are to develop a community-wide approach to child abuse and neglect, to understand the causes of childhood deaths, to identify gaps and deficiencies in service delivery, and to make and implement recommendations for laws, rules, and policies to prevent future child death, abuse, and neglect. And so the statute divides this work into 2 teams. The first team is the Community Child Protection Team, and this team reviews selected active cases of children who are being served by Child Protective Services, and all cases in which a child died as a result of suspected abuse suspected or confirmed abuse or neglect, and had a report of abuse or neglect made on that child or family to DSS within the prior 12 months, or the child and their family was a recipient of Child Protective Services within the prior 12 months. The second team is the Child Fatality Prevention Team, and this team reviews the records of children from birth to age 18 who died from a cause other than child abuse or neglect. And again, it's important to note that fatalities are reviewed in the calendar year following the year of death. So in 2022, we reviewed the deaths of children who died in 2021. And I'm going to share some data from those fatality reviews in a few slides. In our county, like most counties in the state, these 2 teams are combined into one. Also outlined in the statute is the role of the Board of County Commissioners related to the local team. So first, you are to receive this annual report from the team. Second, you are asked to advocate for system improvements and needed resources if requested by the team. And then third, you are to appoint members to the local team as designated by state statute. And at the end of the presentation, I will be asking you to appoint a new member to our team. Now I'm going to share data from our team's review of 2021 child fatalities. So during this year, 2022 and the beginning of this year, we reviewed the deaths of 20 children who resided in Buncombe County at the time of their deaths in 2021. And that number, 20, is pretty average for us, pretty consistent every year. On this graph, you can see the predominant causes of these fatalities were illnesses and birth defects. Most of the deaths attributable to illnesses were due to cancer that had progressed despite treatment. The fatality caused by an accident was due to choking. The fatalities due to perinatal conditions included one due to a placental abruption, when the placenta separates from the inner wall of the uterus prior to delivery, and that affects the oxygen levels getting to the baby and can also cause significant bleeding of the mother. 2 deaths were due to extremely preterm deliveries. And both sudden unexplained infant deaths were categorized as undetermined after autopsy, but both involved unsafe sleep environments. So I would say when we look at all of these deaths, some of these are definitely preventable, right? So we had a death due to suicide, the unsafe sleep is preventable, accidents are often preventable, but things like cancer, things like birth defects, things like sometimes preterm deliveries, even with the best medical care and interventions, are not preventable. And so I think while our goal would be to get this number as low as we can, I think it's unrealistic to think we'll get to zero in a county of our size. But again, continuing work to do what we can to prevent those things that are preventable. This slide shows the 2021 child fatalities by race and ethnicity. So you can see that 6 of the children were Black, non-Hispanic, including 4 infants, and infants are defined as less than 1 year of age. We had 13 white, non-Hispanic children, including 6 infants, and then 1 child who was categorized as other non-Hispanic. And Buncombe County Public Health, we followed the infant mortality disparity ratio as part of our community health improvement work. And I will just say that 2021 was the first year that the North Carolina Center for Health Statistics, which is who sends us the packets of fatalities we are to review, that was the first year that they added a multi-race category for deaths. And so they have recommended, essentially we now have different categories, and so we can't necessarily compare 2021 data and data moving forward to data from prior years. So we have that caveat. And then the other thing I would say is when we look at infant mortality, because these deaths are very rare, we look in 5-year time periods to increase the number, to try to make it more statistically significant and enable comparisons. And what I would say is the 2017 to 2021 Buncombe County infant mortality data is based on less than 10 deaths of Black infants during that time period. And per the biostatisticians and epidemiologists, when you get to less than 10 deaths, that number becomes unstable. And again, there's some caveats and concerns about interpretation of that number. But let's just say we look at what is the infant mortality ratio between Black and white infants in Buncombe County for 2017 to 2021. And that number was 2.2, which means that Black infants were 2.2 times more likely to die before their first year of life compared to white babies. And that, when we look at what we've been tracking, years ago, we were up 3, 4 being the infant mortality ratio. We were able to get it down to 1.42 the last 5-year period. Again, knowing that there's some caution to be taken with this number. We're at 2.2, so we're kind of not where we want to be, clearly. And so work needs to continue on addressing infant and maternal health, especially in our Black population. And so something that we will work on with our community health improvement work. When we look at the number or the ages of the deceased children, you can see that 11 out of the 20 were children less than 1 year of age, so 55%. And again, infant mortality typically drives most child fatality, not just in our county, but across the state and nation. And then when we dive into the infant fatalities and look at the causes of death, you can see that birth defects and the perinatal conditions I mentioned before were the leading causes of death, and that is, again, consistent with what is seen across the state and the country. And when we review deaths, we don't just review deaths and move on. We are asked as a team to determine were there any system problems, any gaps in service delivery, lack of resources, lack of knowledge that might have led to that death and therefore potentially could be remedied to prevent future similar deaths. And so out of the deaths we reviewed, one of the system problems, which is a system problem we come up with every year because we continue to see it, addresses unsafe sleep for infants. And so we continue to see caregivers placing infants in unsafe sleep environments, which leads to these preventable infant deaths. And so Last summer, we were able to sponsor trainings by Safe Sleep North Carolina for community partners, for pediatric care providers, for obstetric care providers, to make sure they were aware of the updated safe sleep recommendations. And I think even more importantly, got training on how to have a dialogue with parents about safe sleep in a way that actually ascertains what are the barriers to them following these recommendations. Often, when we review infant deaths related to unsafe sleep, you will find in the primary care provider records that this was discussed, and the parent said, yes, my baby sleeps on their back in a crib. But that wasn't the case, right, during that time that led to their death. And so really having a dialogue where parents and caregivers feel able to be honest and able to talk about why is it that I have trouble following these recommendations, and hopefully problem solve with the provider. So that training we thought was very valuable. We've also been learning from other counties in the state, how are they tackling? Because again, this is not a problem unique to Buncombe County. And so really trying to see what kind of creative ways are they trying to get the message out, or what resources are they using? And then we're also hoping that Buncombe County will be selected to work with Safe Sleep North Carolina on a pilot project they're going to implement this fall, which will involve a total of 3 to 4 counties who will do some community safe sleep meetings and do cross-county efforts around education and promoting safe sleep, in essence, to build a toolkit for all counties to follow. So we're waiting to see if we'll be selected for that. The other system problem that was identified, that again is not new and will continue to not be new. If you've been following the news, you know that youth suicide has become a more significant issue in our community over the last year to 2 years. And so the recommendation from the team was to really collaborate, have partners collaborate to promote public awareness about the issue of youth suicide. And on May 17th of this year, our team sponsored a youth suicide prevention community conversation, which pulled together representatives from a variety of community agencies that serve youth. It was a great turnout. We shared data, and we really had great conversation and generated lots of ideas about community education and training opportunities, and about prevention, intervention, and postvention efforts. And so work is ongoing related to this, and it feeling very positive about a very negative subject, very positive about some community momentum related to this. And then, it's August, right? It's August of '23, so we have already been reviewing 2022 fatalities. And after reviewing a death of an infant due to malnutrition and injuries and neglect, the team generated a recommendation that we didn't want to wait until my report next year to bring to you. And this system problem we identified was really just infant mortality overall. And so the problem identified was that the lack of a universal nurse home visiting program in Buncombe County for families with newborns prevents children, mothers, and families from receiving education and support that could improve their health, safety, and well-being. And our recommendation was for you all, the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, to consider allocating fiscal year '25 funds for the development and implementation of an evidence-based voluntary nurse home visiting program, such as Families Connect in Durham County, for all Buncombe County families with newborns. So some counties, like I mentioned, Durham County, they do have this program where every family, regardless of your income level or your insurance status, every family with a newborn receives a visit from a nurse during the postpartum period. Decades ago, Buncombe County had this service, but that went away. So having this service available for all families with newborns, regardless of who they are and what they look like and how their insurance their health care bills get paid, would reduce stigma, and would also acknowledge that all families have the potential need for these services. We see deaths from unsafe sleep across the socioeconomic spectrum, across racial and ethnic color. So it would be, again, a voluntary service, but would be universal. So our Nurse Family Partnership Program is not universal, right? They have a limited caseload, and it's really focused on families with maybe the highest risk, right? We have care coordination nurses that work with Medicaid families and some uninsured, but this would be an across-the-board service. So we think this service could be beneficial for child health. We think it could be beneficial for maternal health, right? Assessing for postpartum depression. It could definitely help with child abuse prevention. It could help with these safe sleep interventions. We could have somebody actually looking at where does this child sleep, right? Is there a safe sleep environment in the home? And really connecting families with needed resources. So I know we just started this fiscal year, but we start planning for budget really early, and so we'd encourage this to be considered. And then finally, as I mentioned before, the board is to appoint specific members to our team per statute. And several years ago, the Board of Commissioners appointed a representative from the Mountain Child Advocacy Center as one of the 5 additional members to our team. The employee who had been appointed recently left their position with the agency, and so our team is requesting that the Board of Commissioners officially appoint Colleen Burnett as the new representative from the Mountain Child Advocacy Center on the team. She's a child abuse prevention specialist, and that expertise is very valuable for our team during our reviews. And so that will come up later in your agenda. And that is my presentation. Are there any questions?
I'm curious, when did the program end? The nurse?
I actually, I've been here for 16 years, which is hard to imagine. And I think it was, I'm trying to remember, but I think we still had it right at the cusp of that time, I think. It's really hard for me to remember, though. That was a long time ago.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have so one, thank you for this information. It's jarring but important for us to talk about. Do you have any ballpark of what that would look like, a funding ask to implement something like the voluntary nurse home visiting program?
I do not, but I'm sure we could work on getting that for you.
I'd love to see that at some point. Yeah.
Did you have a question? Okay. All right. Thank you all.
All right, hey, thank you, Dr. Mullendorf, thank you very much. Can we go ahead and vote on the appointment, or do we do that at the end? Oh, it's that boards and commissions appointment, so we'll just do it at the end, okay, with the others, okay, very good. All right. Avril, do you have any items under county manager's report?
One quick one, sir. I do want to introduce to you Chloe Donahue. Chloe joined Buncombe County as the new Affordable Housing Bond Project Manager last month, so she's been with us for a while. And she actually accepted a job several months before that, but we waited for her to come work for us. She recently completed a 3-year dual master's program in city and urban planning and health behavior at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. While she was there, she focused her studies on housing and community development, conducting projects on housing-related topics such as adaptive reviews of development projects, barriers to housing in flood-prone areas, and inequities in local government annexation practices. As part of her education, she pursued a certificate in natural hazards resiliency and sought to better understand climate-resilient approaches to affordable housing, while serving as a climate resiliency fellow with the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. Prior to her graduate studies, Chloe worked in both local government and state health policy in North Carolina, building skills in project management, coalition building, and grant administration. She received her bachelor's degree from Elon in environmental studies and public health. So I do wanted to just join me in welcoming Chloe to the team here at Buncombe County.
Hey, great team, thanks
And
for
that's what
joining
she
us.
said, she didn't want to talk, so.
All right, welcome to the team, Chloe, we're so glad to have you here. All right, thank you, Avril. All right, under new business, consideration of approval of annual property tax settlement for fiscal year 2023 and order of collection to the tax collector for the current fiscal year. Jennifer Pike, tax collector, will help us with this item.
Thank you, Chairman Newman, members of the board. It's a pleasure for me to be in front of you once again. We finished another year. So now that we're in a new fiscal year, there are a couple of items that require action. The annual settlement approval for fiscal 2023 and the order of collection for 2024.
As I mentioned, the annual settlement requires approval, and it contains several components. A summary of net levy and collections for Buncombe County and the jurisdictions and districts we bill and collect on behalf of. There's also a summary report of collections from the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles for registered motor vehicles. A list of unpaid fiscal year 2023 property taxes, and a list of taxpayers who have been found to be insolvent. A couple of reasons for insolvency are if the property is no longer located in Buncombe County, or if a business closes, those property taxes are deemed uncollectible. As of June 30th, 2023, the collected rate for regular property tax was 99.78% of a net levy in the amount of $228,477,928. That left an uncollected amount at June 30 of $495,140, compared to the June 30 of the last fiscal year, a 99.7% collected, and $535,879 uncollected. Couple of additional notes here. We managed approximately 2,700 payment arrangements in the most recent fiscal year. That's something that we continue to encourage. And we also installed before June 30 a couple of walk-up drop boxes for payments at the Black Mountain Library and the Weaverville Library. This slide is simply a summary of the collection rates by the taxing districts for fiscal year 2023. Second action is an adoption of the order of collection for 2024. This is my authorization and requirement to move forward with collection of fiscal year 2024 property tax. So in summary, my requested actions this afternoon are approval of the fiscal year 2023 annual settlement and adoption of the order of collection for fiscal year 2024, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have before those actions are initiated.
And are we able to combine that into one motion? Yes, okay. Motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 annual tax settlement and the adoption of the order of collection for fiscal year 2024.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right, next is consideration of adoption of the open space bond greenway criteria.
Thank you. Here you go. Thank you for having me here tonight. I am the Open Space Bond Project Manager, and I'm here tonight with Thomas Gull from our Parks and Recreation Department to share the criteria and ask the commissioners to adopt it. We did come before the commissioners at the July 18th briefing, but just to recap, we do have 3 projects that are currently slated to receive bond funds. These are the Highway 251 section and Beaver Dam Creek sections of the Woodfin Greenway and the Inca Heritage Trail. The Greenway bond funds will be needed to complete these 3 projects, and after their completion, we will open an application window for new project proposals to compete for the remaining funds. We did, however, want to go ahead and finalize this criteria such that potential applicants can begin building out their proposals, setting up their necessary leveraged funding, and getting their documentation together. This seems to have died. Oh. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. All right. These project proposals will be evaluated using the criteria you see on the screen now. We have a set of qualifying criteria and a set of weighted criteria. The qualifying criteria are to be answered as a yes or no question, and project proposals must answer yes to all 4 in order to move forward for consideration. So these projects will be asked if they leverage the bond funds with other funding sources. Can they be completed within the timeline restriction of the bond, being that 7-year timeline? Do they have a feasibility study completed, and are they geographically located within Buncombe County? If a proposal answers yes to all 4 of these criteria, they will then be scored using the weighted criteria. These criteria are scored on a scale, so projects that better meet a given criterion will receive a higher score for that item. These are connectivity weighted at 19%, environmental impact weighted at 19%, feasibility at 18%, accessibility at 14%, identified as countywide need, opportunity, or priority at 9%, equity at 9%, leveraging of bond funds and project costs at 8%, and safety at 4%. A quick note that, as you can see, both feasibility and leveraging of bond funds are included in both the qualifying and the weighted criteria. For feasibility, even if 2 projects have a feasibility study completed, that does not mean they are both able to be completed at the same efficiency and timeline, given things like topography or stakeholder support. So we wanted to be able to give higher scores to those projects that can be completed in an efficient manner. And for leveraging of bond funds, we wanted to be able to give a higher score to projects that bring a greater number of other funding to the table. Additionally, including them in both sets allows us to give a greater emphasis to those 2 items and focus on projects that we can get done. This criteria was shared with both the Parks, Greenways, and Recreation Advisory Board and the Environmental and Energy Stewardship Subcommittee, and both boards did express support for the criteria. And with that, our requested action is that the commission does vote to adopt the criteria, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Okay, great, thanks. Commissioners, any questions?
Well, I just want to thank everyone that was working on this for the community outreach they did as well, the engagement and the feedback with the community, so thank you very much. Motion to adopt the Open Space Bond Greenways Funding Evaluation Criteria.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you so much, appreciate it. All right. Next item is consideration of approval of down payment assistance notes and deeds of trust assignment to Mountain Housing Opportunities. Matt Card's here to help us out with this item.
That's right. My name is Matt Card. I'm a community development analyst with the Community Development Division, the Planning Department, here to talk about a request to transfer existing county down payment loans to Mountain Housing Opportunities. Not sure where the presentation is. Oh, all right. All right, so down payment assistance, real quickly, how does that work, or what does that look like? It's an additional loan that helps a qualified borrower fund a down payment for purchasing a house. Currently, Buncombe County has about $1.1 million in existing county down payment loans. The loans are fully deferred, and it's 0% interest. Individual borrowers do not make any payments towards the loan. Loans are only repaid when property sells or is refinanced. They make no monthly payments towards those loans. A quick example is a Habitat for Humanity homeowner without county DPA loan of $15,000. That's a pretty average amount. They typically have a primary mortgage with somebody else. Maybe it's Habitat for Humanity. And the homeowner has a DPA loan with the county. No monthly payments towards the principal and/or interest are required, as it's fully deferred. And if the homeowner sells, the DPA loan is paid off, and just similar to a primary mortgage. So this request right here, out of that $1.1 million, is to take $300,000 of those existing DPA loans and transfer them to MHO. We've done this a couple times in the past. We did this in 2012. We transferred about $600,000 worth of loans, along with about $70,000 worth of capital, to establish the Buncombe County Capital Fund that MHO holds. And we did it again in 2017 with $102,000 of DPA loans. So we've invested about $779,000. So with this Buncombe County Capital Fund, there is a 10% loan loss reserve, and that's set up to help protect the funds in case of foreclosure. So in 2022, those funds, that 779,000, grew to almost $1 million using a shared appreciation model that MHO deploys. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So how can MHO do this? It's a Community Development Finance Institute, a CDFI. They basically operate like a bank. They have two different divisions. One does development, one basically acts like a bank. So the benefits of this, MHO can redeploy the funds as down payment assistance once they're paid back. So when that property sells, when they refinance, they get that money back, and then they can redeploy to an income qualified buyer and then use that money again. MHO uses a shared appreciation model. So the funds, when they redeploy, not the funds that we give them, but the funds that get paid back to them, when they redeploy, they use that shared appreciation model, and it grows with the appreciation of the real estate or the home. So MHO shows DPA funds as an asset, and this allows them to receive additional funding, grant funding from the U.S. Treasury. So if they have $300,000 in loans, they can leverage $300,000 from the U.S. Treasury. And just like the county, MHO offers fully deferred, no interest, and no fees. So basically nothing changes. The Affordable Housing Committee looked at this at their June meeting. They recommended that the Board of Commissioners assign county notes and deeds of trust to MHO to expand this Buncombe County Capital Fund. Just going back to that quick example, MHO would now be the lender in case this was approved and these transferred. MHO would be the lender, and they would hold those DPA loans. The terms would also transfer. Nothing changes there. They don't charge additional fees. There's nothing, addition to what is already existing. And then again, when the homeowner sells or refinances the property, the DPA loan is paid back. And then MHO is required to use those funds for another DPA loan. So the request here tonight is to assign $300,000 in Buncombe County held down payment assistance notes and deeds of trust to Mountain Housing Opportunities. I do have a representative from MHO if you have any questions for me or for that representative.
I would be interested in I didn't actually know about this program with MHO, so I'd be interested in the representative just talking more about the program and how people access the program.
Okay, sure. I have Kelly Nossiter here. She runs the Mountain Housing Opportunities Down Payment Assistance Program.
Hi. So MHO has been operating a down payment assistance program since around 2007. We use federal, state, and local money to offer deferred 0% interest loans to people at 80% or below area median income. And they're really just gap financing. They can use it for required down payment. They can use it to cover closing costs or even just to fill a small cash gap between what their lender can qualify them for and the actual cost of the home. It's just that extra push for a ready buyer that doesn't have quite enough capital but can't afford anything else in their monthly payment. And we are a CDFI, which means we do have access to U.S. Treasury capital, but you have to have match money in most years, and it can't originate at a federal level, which means we have to be able to get our hands on some form of funding we can show where these funds are being leveraged. And so we came to Buncombe County for the first time in many, many years, asking if there was any way to infuse some capital into this program that we could then use to see if anything would be available at the U.S. Treasury level. In the past, we've had a lot of success using Buncombe County funds to leverage U.S. Treasury funds so far. But that's sort of the nature of what we do. You have any questions?
Question I have, why do we give it to them and we don't do it? What's the advantage, disadvantage, or what? And when I said we don't do it, the county.
Do you want me to answer that? Well, you have on these original loans, right? So you do have an in-house down payment assistance funds for a more specific, tailored, lower amount. But you don't, By reassigning this, it allows us to access more federal money to infuse into Buncombe County. So it's a chance to use the money you've already invested once to then access a chance. So I'm going to use this, if it happens, and if you agree to reassign this, to have a $300,000 request to the United States Treasury at the beginning of 2023 to see if we can bring additional funds for down payment assistance into Buncombe County.
And we can't go to the Treasury? We can't do the same thing as the county?
I don't believe we can because we're not a CDFI, but I will have to research that
Okay,
answer.
we'd have to be a CDFI.
Correct.
to do
So
it.
she gets to bring
Yeah,
more money
okay.
to Buncombe County for our residents.
All right, any other questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve that we assign $300,000 in Buncombe County DPA and deeds of trust to Mountain Housing Opportunities.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks. Next is consideration of an ordinance amending the fire prevention and protection ordinances. And Kevin Tipton, our fire marshal, is here to help us with this.
Good evening, Commissioners. We talked about this at your briefing a couple of weeks ago. I want to provide you with a lot more clarification, what it does and does not do, and why we're where we're at today with it. There's not been a major revision to this ordinance since 2007. We are required to align with state standards when it comes to fire code, scheduling of inspections, and how we perform those inspections. That schedule has to be adopted by your governing body and then submitted to the office of the state fire marshal. And above anything, we want to prevent life, loss, and property preservation. We also want to increase our opportunities to enhance safety for everyone, whether you're a resident or a visitor to our area, and provide service and education to our businesses, both internal and external, to our customers. North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting did an evaluation of the fire marshal's office in late 2022. It included their recommendation for a major overhaul to this ordinance. A lot of the language in the original ordinance was written in 1994, so you can imagine the population and development changes since then. And where we have to align with the statutes are our periodic inspections, our fire investigation standards. There's a lot of language on page 1 about the duties of the fire marshal. That has to be in there. Remediation, we asked for a change in remediation penalties. They hadn't been updated since 2007. And that is fire code violations that a business just refuses to work with us on, refuses to help us on, and we're just unable to collaborate with them. We also have the new open burning section, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard from your constituents. Not substantive updates, I apologize, are some language changes. When the ordinance was written, there was no such thing as email. Now we deliver all our inspections by email unless a customer specifically requests a paper copy. And again, the remediation penalties, $100 to $500, that is a severe penalty. That is a life endangerment penalty, a blocked exit, fire alarm system not working, sprinkler system not working. And $25 to $100 for other violations. That's things like emergency lights, exit lights, just not maintaining their safety equipment. Talk just a minute about Appendix B. Appendix B is the requirements in the fire code. They take a building, an engineer evaluates that building based on its size, the number of stories, and they say you need 850 gallons of water per minute for 2 consecutive hours to fight a fire. Your sprinkler system demands 80 pounds per square inch of pressure and 67 gallons a minute if all heads are activated. That's what Appendix B addresses, is sprinkler system and fire flows. This has nothing to do with residential. This is all commercial and multifamily, condominium complexes, apartment complexes, and that nature. Appendix D, they did a revision in 2007. The commission at that time adopted small sections of Appendix D. Appendix D is what it takes to get a fire truck to a commercial or multifamily residential building. As you know, we are topographically challenged in this area, and I'll be honest with you, Appendix D in its entirety is what we need to ensure that the fire departments can access these buildings they're building. We've already worked with planning a lot on this. I've already had a challenge to my ruling filed with the state several months back. The state ruled in my favor in my interpretation of the fire code. But when they consulted me and handed down that ruling, they strongly recommended that I try to get this board to adopt Appendix D in its entirety. Open burning section. This is all brand new. Before I start with some of these bullet points, what is legal to burn right now will still be legal to burn tomorrow morning. It's been illegal to burn trash and synthetics and furniture and clothing. That's been illegal since 1974. We are not asking for a new ban to burning anything. We are just putting some common sense requirements and trying to align with some of the other counties that I've read their ordinance. If you adopt this ordinance, any part of this ordinance will be superseded by Chapter 4-1900, that is the air quality ordinance. Ashley's here, she can address specific questions to that ordinance. It is set by the Air Quality Board that is appointed by our commissioners. And again, it remains illegal to burn anything unnatural. Residents at home, the bulk of our residents will never, this ordinance will never affect them. Only thing I'm put in this ordinance is that any fire must be constantly attended until it's out or extinguished. There's changes for land clearing. We have a lot of land clearing, single-family lots, rural sections of the county. Developers and contractors come in and pile this brush up with a bulldozer, set it on fire, and it burns for days. The only time they show back up is to add more to the pile. And I recently dealt with one of Commissioner Wells's constituents, several of them, as a matter of fact, 12 constituents called in about one fire. They couldn't open their windows, they couldn't sit on their porch. Is this ordinance going to change that? I believe it will, when that contractor realizes someone has to sit there with that fire. They're not going to just show up every third day and add more to the pile. And again, that's bad for our health. We've all battled wildfire smoke recently. Permit requirements when applicable. There is no cost for a fire permit. I want to talk about bonfires and recreational fires and the definition of those two. Bonfires do require a permit. They're usually stacked with a machine. They're taller than 6 feet in height. These are public events. This is not a farmer cleaning out his field, piling a 10-foot pile in the middle of the pasture to burn from winter blowdown or debris. Like I said, it doesn't include agricultural. We have only had one bonfire in this county in the last 7 years. I pray I never have to permit another one. We had an incident in the Northeast several years ago. I think there was 8 fatalities where the pile collapsed. It wasn't, code enforcement was lacking. But if you're gonna do a bonfire for a public event, football game, homecoming, church event, you have to have the fire department there. Some fire departments do charge for that. I can't speak to all of them. Some of them have standby fees. Recreational fires. A recreational fire is typically less than 6 feet in height, and it's not contained in a pit or device. And it's attended as a public event, and it requires fire supervision. Where we see these the most, and Commissioner Newman, or Chairman Newman, I'm not picking on your alma mater, Warren Wilson, I go out there 7 to 8 times a year. They have a great sense of community at that school, and they want to have recreational fires. I just met with the president again last week. I have no issue with that. They are always great. We permit them. They have public safety with fire extinguishers. That is a recreational fire. There was a little misconception about fire pits in the backyard being a recreational fire, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Exceptions, approved containers and devices. A backyard fire at a private residence does not require any permit. You must burn wood or vegetation, naturally occurring vegetation. It can't be construction material, treated wood, that sort of thing. There was a lot of definitions or questions around the definitions of an approved container. My fire pit at home is built out of rocks that I picked up out of the creek. That's an approved container. It prevents that fire from spreading across the ground at ground level, and it's 3 feet in diameter. These must be 15 feet from a structure, especially your neighbor's structure. And if you build a fire pit that's 10 feet around, it has to be 25 feet from the structures. That is just preventing conductive heat from damaging a house, damaging siding, and it must be constantly attended until it is extinguished or out. A little bit, just another thing I want to touch on about an approved container. We have a concert venue in the county. They have 3 fire pits that are 50 square feet in size. But that is an approved container. It is surrounded by 3.5 feet concrete walls. And on top of those concrete walls is 36-inch safety railing. I deem that an approved container. There's no way to fall into that without purposely jumping into it. So an approved container has many definitions. Violations and penalties. The servicing fire department or the fire code official has extinguishment of authority over any fire deemed dangerous by them. Our fire departments get calls a lot of times to go, there's a fire in the neighbor's backyard. They get there, there's nothing wrong. But we also get calls to go out, the residents build a fire. It's 10 feet from the neighbor's house. The siding is warm to the touch. That's going to be deemed a dangerous fire. It may be within the size compliance, but you can't damage your neighbor's property. That's just being good citizens. Talked with Commissioner Whitesides, and I'm not going to go into details. The hardest thing I have to tell a citizen are 2 phrases. One is, I can't help you. And the other one's even harder. I'm sorry for your loss. I had a fire in April super nice retired couple, retired military, Navy pilot, war veteran, lost his home to careless burning of a neighbor. That's what I'm trying to prevent. And it would be unethical for me to go into any further details on that. Civil and criminal penalties can be issued in violation of this ordinance. That would start at $500 per violation. I have Ashley Featherstone here. She'll answer any questions about the air quality ordinance. Ashley and I, her team, and myself and my team, we work great together. It's hard for Ashley to go out and order a fire extinguished. It takes a lot of time and a lot of wrangling with the ordinance and usually getting law enforcement involved. And with this ordinance update, that'll help air quality as well as the fire marshal's office and our servicing fire districts and protect our citizens. Again, I ask you to approve the ordinance updates and revisions. If you approve that tonight, we're going to do a public education campaign with our CAPE team. Cassie and I have been sitting back here talking about that this evening, what that looks like. And there will be no monetary enforcement for 30 days, and that's after the CAPE campaign. And I just would be remiss not to thank Taylor Jones, our Emergency Services Director. He made sure we got that study done, got our roadmap to follow, his leadership, his guidance. And I am absolutely appreciative of our county management, Keisha Wesley and Avril Pender. They've supported me as I've went through this ordinance process. This is not something that's happened in a few days or a few weeks. I've worked on this for 8 months. And lastly, to this board for your dedication to the public and the public safety of Buncombe County, because that's how I spend my day every day. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Great. Parker?
As I understand it, the county can be placed under a fire ban for air quality related purposes or for weather drought related purposes.
There's 3 ways to
Three
place
ways.
a fire ban.
Okay.
Ashley, when it turns code orange, the air is unhealthy, such as we've had with wildfire smoke issues, a burn ban. I enforce that along with them, along with our fire departments. The other way is when atmospheric conditions become too dangerous to allow open burning. I think we've had 2 or 3 days of that this year. I'm talking about warm temperatures, low humidity, and transport winds. I read a fire weather forecast every morning at 8:05 on my computer that gives me the smoke dissipation rates, the transport winds, humidity levels, projected humidity levels. And of course, it's green right now, so it would be rare this time of year, but unfortunately, we call October through December fire season. That's our wildfire season. So, and the other way is the North Carolina Forest Service has authority to issue a burn ban, but theirs is issued by regions. If they issued a burn ban for our region, it would cover 12 to 14 counties. Last time that happened was 2016, if any of you remember what we called the Party Rock Fire.
I think that answers most of my question. Regardless of the reason or the agency issuing the ban, it's all communicated to the public the same way or kind of a little bit different, or?
It is all communicated through our media outlets, our social media pages, our websites, every radio, TV. It all goes out through CAPE, whether it's air quality, the fire marshal, or if I get notice from the state ranger that they're issuing a regional ban, then I in turn push that out to CAPE.
My last question is, it's based on events over the last few years regarding the weather or conditions on the ground or whatever reasons in your head, is there any reason for you to believe or to hope that we change the metrics at which we issue fire bans?
Mine is 100% weather-based. Again, it's humidity, transport winds, the danger and the speed that a fire could spread. I'm not as educated, I guess, as I should be on Ashley. She's here. She'll answer any question. And then the state ban is based on the same things, what we call fire weather. And you asked me a question the last time, and I apologize for not giving you a proper answer, or at least I didn't feel like I did. Rental properties. If you own property A and you rent that property to this citizen, you are perfectly within your legal rights to say and put it in your lease or rental agreement that there's no open burning on this property. I will not enforce that. I will not get involved with that because that is a civil matter and I'm a public official.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the detail, and because I know there's been a lot of work going into this, and thank you for just sharing all those details, because this is something that some folks have gotten a little confused about with it. So thank you so much for taking us through this. And I just want to really, one of the key things that I took away from this is that all outdoor burning must be constantly attended, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Period, whether it's the legal burn, all of it. I mean, that's just constantly.
Any legal burn must be constantly attended, and that is a direction that municipalities and county jurisdictions are going statewide. I counted 12 fires in 2 years that came from burns that caused property damage either to their own property or to their neighbors.
And as far as the permitting, so if someone is burning their leaves, their brush, they can still do that. There's no permit needed. But if they're land clearing, that's where the permit is needed.
You're not required to get a permit for land clearing.
Okay.
That was it 2010, 2012? That time frame, the state legislature got involved in what was then known as pollution control, which is now air quality. And I'll be honest, they really gutted the permitting process for that.
They did. They were very specific that land clearing would not require a permit. So that's when we stopped issuing the land clearing open burning permits.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I had missed that point. And then just while you're both there, I think my final question is, so with the part where it was talking about the Chapter 4, Section 1900, Asheville Buncombe Air Quality Agency Code will prevail over the Fire Prevention and Protection Code. And so can you kind of elaborate on why you decided to do the wording in that way going forward?
I believe we're required to yield to that. Is that correct, Mr. Frew?
State code.
Yes, air quality state code.
There is a paragraph in the fire prevention code that says, the new fire prevention ordinance that says all state, federal agencies can supersede this ordinance. I can't go against the state or federal ruling.
Okay.
So as a local air pollution program, we are required to be at least as strict as the state that we operate within. And so our local open burning rules do adopt the state air quality code by reference with some changes for our local area. So I believe it's because it is essentially state code codified in our local air pollution program.
Okay. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
All right, any other questions?
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that we approve the fire ordinance updates and revisions.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all.
Commissioners.
All All right, Commissioners, last item under new business is consideration of a budget amendment for Home and Community Care Block Grant. John Hudson, Budget Director, will explain.
Good evening. Land of Sky is the fiscal agent for distributing funding from the Federal Home and Community Care Block Grant. Land of Sky has asked Buncombe County Health and Human Services to administer funding specific to the provision of adult in-home aid services. This budget amendment accepts $244,364 of the grant funding from Land of Sky for HHS to subcontract for those services in fiscal year '24. This county funding plan addendum will require signature from the board chair, and I believe that is in hand.
I'm interested. Can you tell us just a little bit more about the adult in-home aid program? Just so we know more about it, or
So, I guess I will improvise. So, so adult in-home aid is, it's a program that is subsidized by federal and state funding and also supplemented with local funding, but it is providing in-home aids for folks who are 60 or over to help them remain in their home. So it may be something like helping them clean home, keep their home clean, or get to appointments or some such. So that's the program. I do know that traditionally, those positions have not been paid at the higher end of the salary schedule. And so there has been some issue with recruiting folks to be in home aides. And so with HHS's experience in having done this contracting before, I think that's the purpose of why Land of Sky was interested in HHS administering the funding.
Okay, great. And if people are in need of this, who do they contact? If they're in need of the home aid?
I must confess, I'm pinch hitting as well. Our manager who was going to be here tonight couldn't, but in general, in home aid funds, this has typically been contracted out to one of our local aging providers. So then the elderly citizen would contact that provider to get the in-home aid services going. The actual aids themselves are usually provided by in-home aid corporations, where they're hiring and they're running the scheduling, those kind of things. This year, we lost our provider when we went through committee to distribute the funds. Our local provider could not do it this year, so HHS was asked if we would administer those contracts. So our goal will be to work ourselves out of this job, but it's really a stand in the gap kind of measure. We do need those services to continue. These are elderly folks who, if they could get a little bit of help at home, they can avoid rest home or nursing home placement. So I suppose the question that they probably will be coming to us or to our contract provider to get connected to these services, although we will not be employing the actual aides through Buncombe County. Yes.
They can call social services to get connected.
250-5000.
Thank you.
Give that number again.
250-5000.
Thank you very much. Motion to approve the budget amendment for the BCHHS administering the HCCBG in-home aid program.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, we have a couple of boards to appoint members to. First is the Strategic Partnership Grants Committee. And we have one appointment here. Perhaps I'll just start over on Commissioner Edwards' side. If everyone would just like to go down and identify who your preferred selection would be, and we'll see if there's a majority behind one of the applicants.
Ann Flynn.
And Flynn.
And Flynn?
Ann Flynn.
And Flynn?
All right, I think Ann Flynn's got it.
Unanimous.
Landslide. And the other is the Audit Committee. I'll start over on Commissioner Wells' side this time and go back this. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Moore's side.
Don't forget mine.
No, I'm invisible.
I'm I got up very early in the morning and watched the U.S. women's soccer team, so it's been a long day. It's been a good day, been a long day. So Commissioner Moore.
Martha Ziegler.
Martin Ziegler.
Martha.
Martha. Ziegler.
Martha.
Martha Ziegler.
All right, great. And on the Community Child Protection Team,
Motion to approve Colleen Burnett?
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Thank you all. Appreciate everyone who applied to serve on these different boards and committees. All right, we now come to the reports from boards and commissions. Are there any updates from any commissioners that'd like to share?
I have one. The LEPC Local Emergency Planning Committee met this morning. Unfortunately, I did have to leave early to come do these interviews, so I did not get everything. But the big takeaway is at our November meeting, we are planning a tabletop exercise. Several of the committee members are fleshing out what that topic is going to be. There were some really good ones brought forward today, so stay tuned on what those will be. But a really good thorough tabletop exercise around emergencies is coming our way very soon. We also are learning how to properly dispose of lithium-ion batteries, which are quite a fire hazard. And so more will be forthcoming just in communications about the dangers of not disposing of those properly and the fires that occur around those. So we just missed Fire Marshal Tipton probably sharing more with us about that in the future as well.
Our early childhood committee kicked off sort of our new fiscal year of work and have launched a sort of multi-installment deep dive onto workforce development issues, which began today with a panel of some of our grantees and will continue over our next several meetings and invite anyone who's interested to join us. But we're really trying to dig in on some of the really specific dynamics related to workforce development challenges, which is one of the greatest limiting factors on our ability to fully enroll existing facilities or grow new ones. So good stuff there.
I mean, maybe one quick update for the group from the housing subcommittee. You know, kind of at the end of today's meeting, we discussed where we're at with our goals. And the staff kind of keep us updated fairly regularly on our goals. And so if you recall, I think, was it 2 years ago now that we created the affordable housing goals related to rental housing, different categories of AMI, affordable homeownership goals, a couple other kind of subcategories of goals. And we are on track to meet all of them. I think I would characterize the one exception being homeownership, which is a smaller quantity goal that we're perhaps a little bit behind schedule on meeting that. But it's, I guess I would say optimistically that we could get it, we could get there because the goal is more modest. So yeah, that was all great news. I think the discussion kind of ended that we will all continue to have in the years to come is with interest rates so high, construction costs up, just makes things more challenging and our budget more challenging, and reaching our 2030 kind of end goal on those goals more challenging. So.
All right, great. We have a couple of announcements. On August 15th at 3 p.m., the county commissioners will hold their briefing meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. On August 15th at 5 p.m., the county commissioners will hold their regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. Mr. Frew, there's not a need for an additional closed session. Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.